Hey friends, my name is Emily Ann and this is the Sasser House. Today we are doing a big project that I have never done before. I've always wanted to do and I'm so excited to get to do with you, and that is picking our fall green beans and canning them. We planted these green beans just a couple weeks ago and they are filled with beautiful green beans. We're growing bush beans as well as some pole varieties, but as you can see, there are beans all over these plants, so it is a great day to get out here and pick these green beans. This is my second year growing green beans, and we grew some in our spring and summer garden, and they just didn't look as good as these that we've grown here in the fall. I don't know what the reason for that is. I don't know if, my seeds were better. I did get these seeds from our local co-op, and I don't know if they were just better seeds or if maybe the green beans like this time of year better. We live in zone 7B, and it is definitely cooler than it was when I was growing my green beans in the spring and summer. So maybe they like this time of year better, but either way, this has been really fun to watch these grow because they've grown pretty quickly. I feel like we were just out here planting them the other day, and if you want to see that video, we'll link it above because we planted these together. So I'm just going to make my way down the rows and pick as many green beans as are ready, and then we'll get inside and get to process them. It really does amaze me that these were planted just a couple weeks ago and they're already producing so many green beans for us. And I have probably only picked off of, maybe this is like my 10th plant that I've picked off of, and they don't take up that much space. This right here is one green bean plant and it doesn't take up much space at all. So you could definitely, if you have like a small space or even just container planting, if you live like in an apartment or a condo and you don't have a yard to plant in, you could get some containers and plant some green bean seeds. Just sow them right into the dirt. You don't have to do anything special with them, and you'll be picking green beans in no time. So we are officially ready to start our canning process. And I'm nervous and excited. I have never used my pressure canner like this before. I've used it as a water bath canner, but I've never sealed it off and used it as a pressure canner. So we're going to do this together today. But the first thing I'm going to do is give it a really good wash. While we're in washing mode, I'm going to go ahead and get my jars. Now, this is how many green beans we have to work with. I have no clue how many jars that's going to fill. So, I have probably more jars prepared than I need, but I would rather have more out than get to a place where I need more and I'm in the middle of filling them and I don't have enough. I'm going to be using quart jars for this batch of green beans. I think that this will be a great size, especially if we have another couple over at the house, or if Chris and I make green beans, we'll have enough for leftovers. But I think I'll probably want to do another batch of just pint sizes for Chris and I when it's just the two of us. So I'm going to get these washed up real good. And then after these are washed, I'm just going to fill them up with hot water. That's what the canner guide says to do. So that's what we're going to do, and we'll just set them over here with hot water in them. The last thing we need to do is get our bands and our lids soaking in some hot soapy water. So I think I'm going to fill up some of these in a bowl and really clean them good in some water, kind of agitate it around to get any dirt off. And then I can always rinse them through a colander. Yeah, that water's yucky. Transfer these over, because all my colanders are used up with the rest of the green beans. You could probably close off the sink and wash these all at once in the sink, but I don't know what I'm canning. I try to be as clean as possible as I can with this stuff because I want it to be safe to eat. So we're gonna wash those again the same way. These have never been sprayed with anything. They've never had any pesticides or chemicals or anything like that on them. So I'm not worried about getting any of that off. I just want to make sure that there's no dirt. So what I'm going to do now is get our stainless steel pot. I'm just going to kind of check these as I put them in there because I don't want to put any that have bad spots on them in case we missed them, like this right here. I don't want to can that. So I'm going to get that out. We tried to sort through them as we were breaking them, but it doesn't hurt to give them one last look. So now I'm just going to repeat this process until all of my beans are good and washed, and I'll check back with you after that. Now, I might eat my words, but I think that was the most time-consuming part of this entire canning project. The actual canning and cooking of the green beans doesn't take that long, but the breaking and stringing and washing has taken like 2 hours. Okay, so what we need to do now, I have 2 pots that I need to fill up with water. We're gonna get these beans boiling on the stove, and we need to boil them covered for 5 minutes. It says until they're tender crisp. I don't know what that means, but that's what we're gonna do. Okay, I'm gonna get both of these eyes on, and then we'll get our lids on both of them. And now let's move over to our pressure canner. So the recipe we are following for the green beans comes out of our Ball Complete Book of Home Preservation. And we are doing the hot pack method. So we are bringing our beans and our water to a bowl. We're gonna boil it for 5 minutes. And then we're gonna drain them, but we're gonna reserve that cooking liquid. Basically just the water that they boiled in for 5 minutes. Because then we will use that to fill our jars around our beans. Once we have that done, what we're gonna do, add our salt to our jars once the beans are in the jars. So we don't add any salt or any seasoning now. Okay, then we're gonna place them in our canner, adjust water level, lock lid, and bring to a boil over medium heat, high heat, vent steam for 10 minutes, then close vent. Okay, and we need 10 pounds of pressure. So I have the Presto pressure canner and cooker. It doesn't have like an actual gauge like some of these that I've seen online have, where like the little gauge goes up and tells you at what pressure level you're at. It doesn't have anything like that, but it comes with this little weight that you can have, I don't know, I think it's like 15, 10, and 5 pounds of pressure. So I've removed one of the rings, so we've got 10 pounds of pressure ready to go. And I think that's all we gotta do. And then follow the instructions and try not to blow ourselves up with this pressure canner. I don't know why it's so intimidating. I was intimidated the first time I water bath canned, and now I do it and don't even think about it. But something about this pressure cooker is even more intimidating. But we're gonna get it done, and we won't be as intimidated next time. There's a first time for everything, and I'm glad we get to do it together. Okay, I have an update. I have been reading my manual, this one, and my ball canning guide says I need to boil my, well, not boil, simmer my lids and rings and keep those really hot. And it also says to go ahead and put the jars in here and get those simmering in 2 to 3 inches of water. I went ahead and filled this up because that's what I'm used to doing with my water bath canner. But that's not what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna scoop some of this water out, just like that. And I'm gonna put it back here and get that eye on my simmer burner. And I'm gonna place all of my rings and lids in that hot water. And I'm gonna go pour this out, except for 2 to 3 inches of water. And now all of our jars that are filled with water, I'm gonna put into our canner. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the eye on. So I got every eye on the stove running. Well, I guess except for the middle one. So I'm gonna turn this on. We don't want this to boil, but I guess we just want it to get kind of hot on those jars to keep everything really good and warm. Man, I cannot imagine doing a bigger batch of green beans because you can only fit 2, 4, 6, 7 of these quart-sized jars in this canner at one time. Now, something else I'm gonna have to look up is how much water I need to have inside this canner, because obviously you don't fill it up like over an inch above the top of the jars, which is what you do in water bath. And if you're watching this and you've never water bathed or pressure canned and you're like, why can't you just water bath? What is this? When you are preserving low acid foods, you have to use a pressure canner because the steam and the pressure gets the temperature so much hotter, so it kills any bacteria. When you are canning foods that have acidity, like fruits for jams, tomatoes, peppers, pickles, stuff like that, you can use a water bath canner because it doesn't have to get as hot to kill the bacteria. But for a lot of vegetables, you have to use pressure canning because that steam and the way that this lid locks onto the pressure canner gets the water in here a lot hotter than a water bath canner gets. So that is why we're doing it this way. All right, these green beans are boiling. So I have the timer set. These green beans up here are not boiling yet. This is not as hot of an eye as that one is. So we'll just have to keep our eye on both of them. Okay, so I found out what I need to do as far as how much water needs to be in our pressure canner. We need 3 quarts of water in our pressure canner. It says that if you are processing something for over an hour and 40 minutes, that you can add an extra quart of water. But we're not doing that. So we just need 3 quarts. Thankfully, these are quart jars and they're all filled up. So I will just, when I pull these out, dump 3 of these jars full of liquid back in, and then I'll pour the rest in the sink. We've got 2 minutes until it's time to get those green beans slotted and into a bowl and then packed into our jars. Our green beans back here are done boiling. So I'm gonna move them off the eye, and I'm actually going to move this pot back onto that hotter eye to see if they'll start boiling. And now what I'm gonna do here is just scoop these green beans with a slotted spoon out of this water, but we want to save the water. I saw where somebody had a pot that had, it was a big stock pot, and then it had a strainer that you could pull out, so you can boil whatever you're boiling in there and then just pull it out, and all of that water is left in the pot below, which I think would be really convenient for a project like this. But the slotted spoon will do just fine. Okay, so since these are ready to go, I think I'm gonna go ahead and start packing some of my jars while we're waiting for our other pot to come to a boil. Okay, first thing we're gonna do is dump 3 of these jars back into our canner. And that will give us our 3 quarts of water needed. Ooh, those are warm. Ah. So now I will empty out these other jars over at the sink. Actually, I'm just gonna have these 4 jars out right now because I don't think we've got enough green beans to do more than 4 jars. So our recipe says pack hot beans into hot jars, and then we'll continue with steps 3 and 4. Start packing these beans in. This will be a really good sign of, you know, how many green beans we want to plant. If we wanted to put up a year's worth of homegrown green beans, which I think I would love to do, this will show us with how many we planted this fall, how many plants we would need to plant in order to put up the year's worth. Well, I might actually have more than I thought I had, y'all. It's so hard to gauge how much is going to fit into these jars. And my recipe said to do 1.5 to 2.5 pounds fills 1 quart-sized jar. And I don't have a weight. That's also something I'm putting on my Christmas list this year, because I want to be able to weigh my harvests to see how much we're actually growing and then compare it when we grow it the next year. But I picked all these beans this morning, but I had no way. I mean, I knew I had a basket full, but I didn't have any way of telling how many pounds I had. It says to pack them in here, and I'm going to use this little tool that I use to get the air bubbles out with to make sure that they are good and pressed down and packed in here. Because yeah, I could probably fit more than I've even got in here once I pack them down. Oh yeah, I absolutely could. This says pack vegetables into jars to within a generous 1 inch of top of jar. Add salt if using, and then ladle boiling water or cooking liquid into the jar to cover the vegetables, leaving 1 inch. So it says to leave a generous inch, which is, this is 1 inch to the top, this ring down here. So we have a very generous inch. So what I think I'm gonna do actually is pour some of these into here so that we can at least get some of these completely done. So I'd say that's a generous 1 inch, and then we have this one that's about half full. Now to add our salt, for a quart-sized jar, we need 1 teaspoon of canning salt. So I'm gonna put 1 teaspoon of our salt into each jar. There goes our timer. Before I get my other beans out, I'm gonna go ahead and ladle in our liquid into these jars that we have pretty much done, just because I want to go ahead and get those finished up and get my workspace cleared for more. All right, now I'm gonna run this all along the sides of my jar, and this is just gonna make sure that all of those air bubbles rise up to the top and we don't have any pockets of air in our product. And we have got a very generous 1 inch of headspace. So I think that that is right. And then taking a clean rag with some white vinegar, I'm just going to go along the tops of these that are ready. I'm gonna reach in to my simmering water and put a lid on. Now these are ready to go back into our canner. And we'll just repeat this same process with the other beans that just got finished boiling. I'm gonna add just a little bit of vinegar to make sure there's no watermarks on my jars. And now it's time for the part that I'm scared of. Okay, let's turn this simmer burner off, get those moved out of the way, and get our book one more time. Place jars on the canning rack immediately after each jar is filled. Hold up the cover to a light to make sure there is nothing blocking it, which I checked that, but we'll check it one more time. I can see right through that little vent right there. And we need to line up the V's, it says. Okay, so we got the V's lined up. Press down on the handles to compress the sealing ring and turn in the direction indicated to close clockwise until the cover handles are above the body handles. Okay, I need to figure out why that was so difficult, but I got it on. Position the canner on the burner. Using a high setting, heat the pressure canner until a steady flow of steam can be seen, heard, or felt coming from the vent pipe. That's what this is right here. So we're gonna heat this up on a high heat. Exhaust air from the canner for 10 minutes by allowing a steam to flow from the vent pipe. Reduce heat if necessary to maintain a steady, moderate flow of steam. Okay, so we're just gonna watch this, and I'm gonna clean up the kitchen until a steady flow of steam is seen, felt, or heard from that vent pipe. Okay, so as you can see, I hope you can see it, a steady flow of steam is coming out of that vent pipe and some water. I need to read if that's okay, but I'm gonna set a timer for 10 minutes. Okay, so our timer went off. It's gone for 10 minutes. We've assembled the pressure regulator. I guess that's how I do that. I just put it on there. Place the regulator on the, hold on. Does it just, I guess it just sits like that. Is that supposed to be sputtering like that? Your guess is best as mine. Okay, place the pressure regulator on the vent pipe. If heat was reduced for exhausting, adjust to a relatively high setting and heat canner. Oh my goodness. It says, as pressure develops in the canner, the air vent cover lock will lift and lock the cover on the canner. Right here, that raised. The air vent cover lock is a visual indicator, right here, it's locked, of the presence of pressure. If it's in the up position, there is pressure in the canner. When it is in the down position, there is no pressure in the canner. Continue heating until the pressure regulator begins to rock. Okay, it's not rocking, but it did lift, and so that means there's pressure in the canner. Processing time begins when the pressure regulator begins to rock gently. Okay, y'all, this just started rocking, so now I can set my timer. Okay, so it's been over an hour, and when I take this off, there is no steam coming out. So we can open up this lid. It's turning very easily, which is a good sign. We're gonna open it up away from us, just in case, yeah, there's still some steam to come out. Those beans are still boiling inside the jars. That's insane. Okay, so we have the lid off, and according to our ball canning book, it says, remove canner lid, wait 10 minutes, then remove jars. So I'm gonna set our timer for 10 minutes, and then we're gonna get our jars out of here. Oh my gosh, the pink beans. The beans, when they cook, turn pink. I've always wanted to can green beans. We did it! That was a little stressful at times, but really not that bad. I can't say it was the easiest thing I've ever done in the whole world, but it wasn't the hardest. So, one thing that I'm really excited about is we used our pink half runners. Those were the beans that we canned up, and you can see the beans inside of them are pink, which is really, really cool. You can see them back here. It's gonna be so much fun to get to pull these off the pantry shelf and enjoy them. And I know that we'll be doing this again as more green beans grow out into the garden. I'm so thankful that I have got my first time done, and now I'm not scared of it anymore. So the next time will be even easier. Thank you guys so much for being here. Leave a comment down below for what you want to see next. And if you love all things home, gardening, DIY, decor, furniture flipping, budget, cooking, the Sasser House is the place to be. We would love it if you would consider subscribing and joining our family around here. We'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, y'all.